Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about a big story that happens in both the world of military and veteran affairs and finance, because the investment company Charles Schwab actually purchased the 1 million wealth management accounts from USAA. Now, USAA wasn't purchased itself. It's still a separate entity. It's still a credit union that will offer you your checking and savings accounts, insurance, and credit cards. But USAA, I think, actually made a smart decision where they said, we're not large enough to compete, to offer competitive investment options and funds in the world of finance anymore. There's a lot of these companies now offering no-fee trades, no-fee commissions. You know, you think about the app like Robinhood or companies like Fidelity. And we'll go on USAA's website in a second, but they basically said that they weren't making enough money to really support this function, you know, wealth management. These are your brokerage accounts, your IRAs, your trust funds. So what they did is they let Charles Schwab accumulate them. So if you have a brokerage account, investments, or an IRA with USAA, in the next year it's going to just transfer over to Charles Schwab. You'll be probably on Charles Schwab's website directly purchasing and doing business with them. To put it in perspective, Charles Schwab has about $3.5 trillion in assets, whereas USAA only had $100 billion in managed assets. By transferring all of their accounts to Charles Schwab, we'll be able to leverage their financial expertise and services more effectively. I actually think this was an inevitable step because when you think about a large company like Charles Schwab, they attract, basically the mega rich. Billionaires do business with Charles Schwab. So it's really easy for a company like that to assess large fees on them and then have their entire customer base be supported by that, by their products and services and staff that they support themselves with through doing large transactions. But when you think about USAA, who do they primarily serve? They serve, active duty and veterans. We're not really, there are a couple, but there's not very many millionaires and billionaires who have gone through the United States military. I'm going to give you an example real quick of what I'm talking about with how, in a way, USAA couldn't really compete anymore with the larger financial management companies. Okay, we're on USAA's website at the moment, and I actually do have a Roth IRA with USAA. And it was only after I set up the account that I was looking at their products and services, and I actually made the conclusion over a year ago that USAA wasn't that good. I still have the brokerage account, so it will automatically transfer over to Charles Schwab. When that happens, I'm going to look at Charles Schwab's financial products, and if I think that they're good for me or competitive, I'll keep the account. Otherwise, I'll just transfer my funds from my Roth IRA here over to Vanguard, because I also have a Vanguard Roth IRA. But let's first look at USAA's mutual funds, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Right now, they're sorted by yield since inception. And the S&P 500 index fund is a no-brainer. No human being is required to, make that type of a mutual fund. It's literally just equal shares of the top 500 companies publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And when you look at the return since inception, they created this fund in 1996. It's averaged 8.5%, but you can look at the 10-year, 5-year, and 1-year yield. But the thing to notice here is the expense ratio. The expense ratio for their version mutual fund of the S&P Index 500 is 0.27. So that's what they're charging you in order to have this service. And they only have two funds, the Aggressive Growth Fund and the Cornerstone Equity Fund, that have outperformed the S&P 500 since inception. We can sort differently. We can say year to date, and we'll see maybe which funds. Let's now look for the 500, S&P 500. Oops. Okay. And yeah, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 funds. But you look at these expense ratios, over 1%, 1.2%, 0.75%, that's really high. That really cuts into the value that you're getting from these funds when they're not really being, in my opinion, that expertly managed. So now let's switch over to Vanguard. And to see the S&P 500 kind of as a benchmark of comparison, Control F, let's find the 500. So it's right here. And right now it's organized since inception. It's different because this started in 2000 and there was, don't worry about that number as far as a comparison because the starting year doesn't have an impact. But you can look here at the expense ratio of 0.04%. That's what Vanguard will charge you for basically, managing that index 500. Whereas we'll go back to USAA and they were charging 0.27. So you do the difference and you're losing 0.23% in expense fees for basically the exact same fund. The exact same fund. I don't know what the expense fees on Charles Schwab is like. I'm hoping it's comparable or same or possibly lower than Vanguard. I don't think it will be because Vanguard has that reputation of being the lowest, them and Fidelity. But you look at all these other funds that have outperformed the S&P 500 index fund offered through Vanguard. And it's very impressive. You can diversify your portfolio, you can invest in all of these things that have, since their inception at least, have outperformed the S&P 500. And we can sort by year to date to kind of give a, so now it's sorted just year to date, 500, and then all of these funds offered through Vanguard are outperforming the S&P 500. And you have expense ratios like 0.07, 0.12, 0.22. The biggest one I'm seeing here is 0.46, and that's still more than half, less than half of the expense of, for example, this precious metals and minerals fund, which they're charging 1.23%. Okay guys, if you found this video, please give it a thumbs up so other people can find it. In addition, consider subscribing to my channel. I post weekly about military and finance topics. And if you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I love hearing from you guys and I will respond. Until the next video, take care.